Hey everyone, I just wanted to go over a little bit of the key points of the patch notes that just came out. I wrote out this little thing over here, so I'm going to be referencing something. I'm not just going at random, so the first thing I want to go over is the overview of Betrayal and the new masters and the new master crafting. Um, Basically with Betrayal, you're going to, with the new league, you're going to start fresh like always with all the new leagues, new character, new stash, everything. Everybody's on the same equal footing in the beginning. And you're going to run into this new mechanic called the Immortal Syndicate, which is going to be in every zone that you run into after, I think, the coast, which is the first zone right after the first town. So it'll essentially be the second area with monsters. After that, when you run into them, it's weird how it works. So you kind of have to see it better than have it explained to you, but basically you're going to investigate these mysterious criminals, and you're gonna get further into their ranks, so to speak. You're gonna go up further into their, yeah, I guess ranks is the word I'm looking for. And then you kill them, or you persuade them to help you, or betray each other and all this and that. So there's a lot to go into that, and since we don't have a lot of details because we haven't played it yet, I'm not going to do a full comprehensive guide on that or anything like that, because I don't want to give false information. So with that big change, we are getting new masters for the hideouts, which they're no longer dominating hideouts themselves. The hideouts will be found throughout the world, but that's a little bit further down the list. The new masters themselves are right here. They are going to be Alva Valai, Nico Samad, and Einhard Frey. And basically, the old masters are gone. Where they are is spoilers, and I'm not going to tell you, even though I know, because it's the most obvious hidden thing I've ever seen. But basically, those new masters are, if you aren't aware, they are old NPCs from previous leagues. Alva being Incursion, which was 2 leagues ago, Nico being Delve, which was last league, and Einhard being Bestiary, which was 3 leagues ago or 4 leagues ago. And basically, they are going to take over the master spots and give us our daily missions based on old league mechanics, which is really good because it allows them to, in the future, move forward with new masters and new league mechanics and new NPCs. It kind of leaves like an open-ended design point for them, and it's pretty obvious and kind of already confirmed, like unofficially, that Juno or Toy, which is the new Betrayal person, that she will be staying after Betrayal League as a new master officially. It's not 100% yet, but it is kind of really hinted at. So the next thing is the master crafting. Now, master crafting previously, you can skim through that if you want, but basically what it was is, as you did master missions, your masters would level up, and then each master kind of resided over a certain weapon or armor type. So like Vagan was the weapon master, so he resided over melee weapons, one-handers and two-handers and stuff. Tora was the bow master, so she resided over bows, quivers, and belts because they had nowhere else to put that, and so on. Well, that's not really the case anymore, because there's not enough masters to cover all the types, and since they're rereading those masters, and the masters that we are getting are based on league mechanics, now the way we're getting the new crafts is going to be through certain missions, and a lot of it's probably going to be through the campaign. They haven't, we don't have a list of where to get everything, and we don't know other crafts that we're going to be able to get, but they're going to be not just through these arbitrary levels and all this and stuff. That's just gone by the wayside. Now it is just based on goals. You may have to get one by completing a certain incursion room or something. They gave a few examples, but they're specific things. They're not just little levels, and then they're probably more themed to the craft that you get out of the goal. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be able to help you target farm crafts that you want instead of just getting random craft that you don't want. And now you can also, it appears that there's no requirement for actually redoing crafts. I mean, it's always cost an orb of scouring, but you used to have a master level 7 that resided over the type of item that you wanted to remove the craft on. So if you wanted to remove the craft on a piece of armor, like a chest piece, you had to have Haku at level 7. But it seems like you don't have to have that anymore, which is a really good change, because it was just annoying to have like a really big thing to remove a craft. It just didn't make any sense. So I'm glad they're changing that. I wrote down new skills, and I'm not really good at notes because I don't know what part I want to talk about the new skills, because there's a lot that's been spoiled about them, and a lot of them you kind of have to see in action, because just like writing down like a little note about it doesn't really do a lot of it justice. But I guess specifically I want to talk about the brands, because I think that's what I'm going to start with this league, and we'll get into why I'm starting with brands a little bit later, because I kind of crapped on a couple of my plans. So the brands are like a new mechanic, which is they're introducing two brands right now: Storm brand and Armageddon brand. And basically what they are is they're like a little seal. I guess they're calling it a brand, but why would I use a different word, right? It's like a little brand on the ground. You cast it, it sits there. If there's no enemies around, it does nothing. If there is an enemy around within its attachment range, I guess they're calling it, it'll snap to that enemy, and then it'll do an effect based on which brand it is. The Storm brand will cause it to basically cast Arc on it. It's kind of weird, they're just adding worse Arc. That's cool. Armageddon brand makes it drop meteors every so often on top of it, and that's the one that's more interesting to me, because it just looks really cool in the little video they showed us. So those being a new skill have a lot of new interactions. I'll get to those as I go on a little bit, because that's further down in the subclass section and the passive section that I'm going to get to. So the next big thing on the hideout, this is kind of slept on, honestly. Like, nobody really mentioned this, but 13 new hideouts is just really cool. I mean, yeah, it's not like a big change, but they told us when I originally read about the hideouts, they said there was going to be 8 more, possibly more than 8 more coming in, because they were planning on doubling the amount of hideouts. So it looks like they're nearly tripling it, instead of going from 7. Is there 7 now or 8? I don't know. I think it's 7. Either way, they're adding a lot. Like, they're going up a lot of hideouts. So I think that's really, really cool. That's a good change. So there's a really, really big balance change. Yeah, it's all the master stuff. Here we are. This right here. This basically is removing stat sticks, and by basically I mean it's exactly removing stat sticks. And stat sticks are, so to explain what a stat stick is, for those who don't know, they were a melee type of weapon, and they are used with spells, but I'll get to that in a second. But in the sense of a melee stat stick, you would have dual wielding, so you would have one weapon in your main hand, which is your main weapon. Say it's an axe, right? And then you would have a second weapon in your second hand, which is your stat stick. And you would use a skill that either only used axes and didn't use, say, maces, which is your second hand, or only used your main hand, which was a tag on some skills. And then the stats from your second stick would apply to the attack, even though that second weapon never actually attacked. It just kind of sat there, and you just attacked with the first weapon. So that was like really, really strong, because, and I brought this up, but I forgot to go to the right thing, because I did try to prepare for this, but I also didn't do a good job at it. One-handed maces. No, not maces. I'm sorry, scepters. Scepters were what the really OP thing was, and it was introduced with the War for the Atlas when they introduced shaper items. Here they are. This gain % of physical damage is extra fire damage, extra lightning damage, and then there's also, where are you at? There's, oh yeah, there's penetrates elemental resistances. There's all this other stuff, right? All of those things are global. They are not applied to that weapon. They're applied to your entire character. And since they went up to 40%, and you could get this one and this one, and you could get, you know, another one, like it wound up being a total, like you could get one with like 120% added extra damage, and that's not like most other multipliers. That is, you know, if you have 100% extra physical damage as, you know, fire, lightning, and cold, like, spread out, that's double damage. You know, it may be elemental, but, you know, you just scale it for those. So long story short, they were really, really strong. It would, like, double your damage at least. And it's just been getting worse and worse every league. So eventually, they knew they were going to have to do something about it, and I guess they just kind of went forward with it and removed them completely for melees. Now, what they did down here, and I'll actually scroll down a little bit to try and find it. And I probably should have done this. Oh, here it is. The Shaper weapon mods, which cause you to gain a portion of physical damage as extra cold, fire, or lightning damage, or have extra damage of a random element, grant half as much extra damage. Now, the reason they did this is because, yes, they removed the stat stick interaction, but this still would have worked with casters for things like Blade Vortex, which is a physical spell, Glacial Cascade, which is a physical spell, all this other shit. So that being halved, it's still usable, but nowhere near as OP broken as it was. Where are we at here? So yeah, basically what they did, long story short, after, well, I guess long story long now, is they made it so that if you're dual wielding and one of your equipped weapons is not usable for the skill that you're attempting to use, it will just disable the skill. And as well, the ones that used to say main hand only, like, all of those don't exist anymore. None the skills exist, but that tag main hand only doesn't exist. So nothing is main hand only now, which is quite interesting. It's gonna alternate on every skill that you do, so that's really, it's completely different. People are crying, you know, their knee-jerk reaction is everyone's screaming that melee's dead, no one can use a melee character anymore, blah blah blah. I think it's just that for a long time everyone's been handicapped by the stat sticks, so I feel like everyone just needs to calm down and it'll be okay. Alright, so the next thing on I'm actually gonna minimize my list to avoid any more spoilers. Here we go. Next thing on my list is this here. Is the longest name of a stat I've ever seen in a video game. This isn't, I didn't make this up. Look, non-ailment. Yeah, there we go. Look, I didn't make that up. That is real. Non-ailment chaos damage over time multiplier. That is a stat. That is there a lot. God damn, give me that. Look at that. That shows up 10 times. Reword that. I don't know how. I'm not a game designer, but that is ridiculous. Alright, so that was just an aside. That annoys the crap out of me. So yeah, next major change. Cast on Critical Strike is back. It's not better than ever, and there's a big change that everybody's kind of ignoring that they did. And I may be remembering this wrong, and I'm not going to fact check myself. I'm just going to assume that I'm right. But what they did is they changed the cooldown time, but at the same time that they changed the cooldown time, they added a cycle mechanic that didn't used to exist. And it used to be that there was a really low cooldown of like 0.05 seconds or something. Like, it was really, really low. And then every time you would crit, if you had let's say you had a skill like it was an attack barrage linked with cast on crit, and then that was linked to fireball and arctic breath, when you crit and it procced the cast on crit, it would shoot fireball and arctic breath at the same time. And what everyone's I think I'm almost positive I'm right about this, is that they added a cycle, so it doesn't shoot both at the same time anymore. At the same time they increase the cooldown, it shoots one and then the other in like a rotation. So one time you crit, it would shoot fireball, and then the next time it would shoot arctic breath, and then so on, you know, back and forth. Or, you know, if there's more spells, it would go through that. So I think everyone's kind of ignoring that, unless I'm just forgetting about it. But I've never seen anyone else mention it. And I swear I'm not wrong. I swear I'm right. So we'll see what happens with that. But in the long story short, on all of that, this is really good. Like, I'm probably gonna play a cast on crit character this league. I don't know if it'll be right away, but it's gonna be good. So before I get to the next thing, I did want to go over how they are adding in a bunch of, like, cast an additional brand, all this extra. You can have an additional brand attached to an enemy. They're adding in all this extra brand stuff, as well as on the Hierophant down here. This is an entire brand-based node. And it says new notable. And unless they're just adding in a whole new passive, something got removed and they haven't told us what. And that's a little bit concerning. So the other thing about Hierophant is they're losing a totem, but they're just getting the multiple totems passive, kinda. Like the good part of it. Well, one of the good parts, which is the 2 additional at a time, or 2 totems at a time. And I'm pretty sure those don't stack because both of them say summon 2 totems. I might be wrong about the wording on the multiple totems. I don't feel like good enough. But that kind of sucks that they're losing a totem. So, yeah, I guess 4 was a lot. Alright, next thing. Rare uniques are better, I guess. Yep, that's, they just did like a bunch of number hikes up on a lot of these uniques that are like really rare to find. Hyries Ire is really good. I'm not going to go through each one. A lot of people have done that, and I mean there's a few notable things like Doriani's Touch. I didn't pull up, like I pulled up the Wikipedia page, the wiki page for the ones I want to talk about, but Doriani's Touch is a pair of gloves that gives you I'm sorry, Doriani's Fist gives you the Doriani's Touch skill. It's a pair of gloves that gives you an ability to use, and you have to be unarmed to use it and all this shit. And like they made it like really stronger, but that's all like is it stronger? Because everyone's like looking at the damage effect and it's like, oh my god, that's so good. But then it has 50% less attack speed instead of 30%. And you know what else had 50% less attack speed? Is this I don't remember what it's called. Yeah, this thing. 50%. Oh, that's only reduced. Like nobody uses this thing. Like every once in a blue moon, someone will make a meme build out of this shit. It's just like bad, so I don't know. I just don't think it's gonna be good. Anyway, that wasn't even on my list of things to talk about. But so Impulsa is a real big problem for a really long time now. And basically what it does is it lets any character, I'll show what it does here. It's any character that can apply shock, which is any character if you really try, be able to one-shot and clear entire packs of enemies just at a moment's notice. And yeah, so it's God, this is just so dumb. So this is what was so good about it. Like you would kill one enemy and it would explode, dealing 10% of their maximum life as lightning damage, and the 10% was, I guess it was important or whatever, but that damage could scale with any sort of elemental or lightning scaling, anything like that. And that's where the problem lies, right? Like this here is really good. Increased damage if you shocked an enemy recently. That would scale this damage, you know, anything like that. So, you know, hitting one enemy and then it would explode, dealing like 90% of it. Like it was ridiculous. And so everyone was expecting this big nerf because it's like stupid strong, and all they did was change it to only have 5% as the maximum life explosion instead of range of 5 to 10. So, long story short, they didn't actually do anything. Like Impulsa is still ridiculous. And here is the saddest one. Like, when I saw this, I was in my car after work waiting for it to defrost. And I swear, like if there wasn't people around, I would have cried. Dear Lord, this is the saddest thing I've ever read in my life. Toxic Rain's dead. It's gone. There's nothing left. So to explain how this works, basically Toxic Rain the way the gem works. Actually, let me bring it up. I'll show you this. Sorry, I should have thought about this beforehand. Basically, the way the gem works is that you scale this right here. Oh wait, no, just this right here. You scale this right here, and this part right here is not affected by your weapon damage at all. Now, it is affected by projectile damage, which is a different stat. But the fact that Toxic Rain had 40%, or I'm sorry, Quill Rain the bow had 40% less weapon damage, which I'm going to show you here. 40% less weapon damage. It didn't actually affect this stat, but now 40% less damage it does. So long story short, 40% less damage is actually a dead skill. Like, it's just not usable. Like, it's not gonna do any damage. It's gonna be noticeable. Like, I sat and I thought about it, and I even messaged one person like who had commented on my YouTube, and I was like, hey, maybe it's not dead, and the dude just replied back, he was like, nah, it's gutted. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I was being hopeful. No, it's dead. Toxic Rain is gone. It's one of my favorite skills I've ever played. They didn't have any reason to do that, in my opinion. Like, it wasn't OP. It was fun. Yeah, it was stupid. But, yep, Toxic Rain is dead. So, all right, next thing. Ah, this is really good. Okay, so prophecies can trigger. Here we are. Prophecies which can trigger in maps no longer lock their triggers to specific maps out of their possible pool. In other words, if you attempt to open a map where a prophecy might trigger and it doesn't, it may trigger next time you open it. Previously, if it did not trigger in that map, it never would. So basically what that was is, let's say I have a monstrous treasure prophecy. I prepared for this one properly, right? So I have this equipped and it says you will travel to a map where the monsters lie in wait, open the boxes they guard, and slay them all. So long story short, it would turn all of your 36 strong box or 30 monsters into these 36 strong boxes. So there'd be no monsters in the map, but you would get a bunch of strong boxes. And let's say I wanted to run that on a lighthouse map. So I would run a lighthouse map and it wouldn't happen. And what that used to mean was it would never happen, and I could never get on a lighthouse map, and I'd have to just try another map. It doesn't matter if I had Sextants on it, doesn't matter. It would just never happen. But now I can just try again, and it will trigger eventually, hopefully, as long as that isn't broken. So I don't know what else. Okay, yep. So stream, whatever. Stream of Monsters doesn't suck anymore. This is kind of a minor change. The Stream of Monsters Strongbox mod now spawns monsters much more quickly and can spawn magic and rare monsters. So this is like one of the most annoying. It wasn't the worst Strongbox modifier, but it was one of the most annoying to deal with. And now it is, I guess, fixed. The music stopped. Where the music stopped? There we go. There's something. No, it's quiet this whole time. Sorry, I'm whisper talking. It's the middle of the night, so I have people sleeping in the house. Let me take a drink of water. Alright. So, Stream monsters won't be a problem. The last thing I want to talk about the patch notes. Let me show you. Arc. Okay. Search. Yep. Okay. Research. Yep. No. Arctic Breath. War Chief. Carcass Check. Anarchy. Nope. Yeah. So here's the thing, Arc did not get nerfed. Blade Vortex did not get nerfed with Impulsa. So, long story short, Arc. Where's the Arc nerfs, buddies? That thing is ridiculously strong, has been since Incursion. And they just don't give a shit. Y'all can have fun with your Arc still. Nothing about that changes. So that's pretty much my overview of the like key points of the patch notes. There's a lot more of the patch notes. I mean, I definitely cherry picked here, right? There's a ton to go through. I've read through it all twice now. I may have missed something, right? Like, I'm not good at taking notes. So if there's anything else you wanted to discuss or any other stuff, let me know. I hope you liked my kind of like in-depth of the mechanics. I was trying to do a little more towards like newer players and people who weren't familiar with certain things, you know, some of the major stuff that's coming up. So that's basically it. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.